The airport smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, a scent Harley always associated with beginnings. He leaned against the glass, watching Los Angeles unfurl beneath the plane's descent. A patchwork of glittering pools, sunburnt rooftops, and palm trees standing like sentries. After 3 years of phone calls and photographs, he was finally going to see his daughter again. He had practiced the reunion in his head. Maybe she would open the door, eyes widening, kids tumbling around her legs, laughter spilling into the porch. He would hold out the small wooden jewelry box he'd carved in his garage. Tell her it was for Emma when she grew old enough to inherit her grandmother's ring. Martha would have loved that, he thought. She had always believed in passing things forward. Recipes, stories, keepsakes. The Uber driver was chatty, humming along to Spanish pop songs on the radio. Harley half listened, fingers brushing the box in his coat pocket, rehearsing words he hadn't spoken aloud. I missed you. I should have come sooner. You look just like your mother when you smile. The house appeared ordinary at first glance. White shutters, a neat walkway, roses by the window. But the closer Harley came, the more details jarred. The roses were brittle, their edges browned. A tricycle lay toppled on its side, one wheel turning lazily in the afternoon breeze. The mailbox bulged with unopened envelopes, bills weathered by days of sun. He rang the bell once, waited, pressed again, longer this time. The chime echoed, hollow into silence. No laughter, no footsteps, no child's shriek of "Grandpa," like he had dared to imagine on the flight. Matilda. His voice felt too loud against the stillness. He stepped back, scanning windows drawn with heavy curtains. It was the wrong kind of silence, not the peaceful hush of nap time, but the vacant quiet of a place abandoned. Harley's throat tightened. He circled to the side gate, peering through slats into the backyard. Patio furniture sagged under dust. The vegetable patch was withered stalks. He remembered the photos she used to send. Jack holding up tomatoes with both hands, Emma beaming with soil on her cheeks. Now only absence. Excuse me? The voice startled him. An elderly woman in a straw hat stood next door, pruning shears in gloved hands. Are you looking for the McCoys? Yes. I'm her father, Harley said quickly. Have you seen them? The woman frowned, eyes narrowing. Not lately. Been awful quiet. Used to hear the children playing every morning. Weeks now, nothing. She hesitated, as though weighing whether to say more. Is everything all right? He forced a smile that cracked before it reached his eyes. I'm sure it is. But inside, dread clawed upward. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Matilda's number. He pressed call. 1 ring. 2. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. On the 3rd attempt, someone answered. A man's voice. Calm, professional. This is Dr. Rivera, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Are you family? Harley gripped the railing of the porch, the jewelry box still in his pocket, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. I'm her father, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Mr. Sims? The doctor replied, pausing as if to steady his own words. Your daughter is in our intensive care unit. I think you should come immediately. The roses on the porch seemed to wither further before his eyes. The taxi lurched through late afternoon traffic, each stoplight a personal insult. Harley's fingers drummed against his knee, the jewelry box pressing against his chest pocket like a weight he could not shift. Every glance out the window revealed a city moving on with its life. Joggers in neon shoes, children dragging backpacks home from school, couples sipping iced coffees at sidewalk cafes. How dare the world look so normal when his own had just tilted off its axis? He pressed his palm to the window, trying to steady himself. Matilda was only 38. Just months ago she had sounded healthy enough. Her voice brisk and bright as she told him she was just tired. He had believed her, wanted to believe her, because believing otherwise would mean admitting he had failed twice. First as a husband to Martha, now as a father to Matilda. The hospital rose from Beverly Boulevard like a fortress of glass and steel. Automatic doors slid open, spilling him into cool air that smelled faintly of disinfectant and overworked air conditioning. At the desk, he struggled to find his voice. "Matilda McCoy," he said finally. "Intensive care." The receptionist gave him a badge. The elevator ride stretched into eternity, each floor number glowing like a judgment. His reflection in the steel door looked older than he remembered, lined, weathered, the kind of face grief leaves behind. The 7th floor smelled of antiseptic and something harsher. Fear. Machines beeped in syncopated rhythm down the hallway, voices lowered to hushed registers. Dr. Rivera, the man from the phone, appeared by the nurse's station, his expression gentle but edged with honesty. "Mr. Sims." "Yes. She's stable at the moment. The treatments haven't worked as we'd hoped, but she's fighting." He gestured down the corridor. "She's been asking for family." Harley followed, each step heavy. At the door marked 712, he hesitated. His hand hovered over the handle. He had imagined this reunion 1,000 ways. Laughter, a warm kitchen, his grandchildren pulling at his sleeves. Not this. Not a doorway into fluorescent light and the hush of machines. He pushed it open. Matilda lay propped against crisp white pillows, her frame reduced to fragile outlines. For lines traced veins like borrowed strength. The moment her eyes found him, the frailty dissolved into a smile, faint but fierce. "Daddy!" The word broke him. He crossed the room in 3 strides, folding himself around her carefully, as though she might shatter. She smelled of antiseptic and something still uniquely her, lavender lotion, perhaps, clinging faintly to her skin. "Oh, sweetheart." His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you." She tried for a laugh, but it came out thin. "You've been carrying so much since Mom." He cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You should never have to carry this alone." Matilda's hand, cold and bird-like, squeezed his. "Gary said he'd take care of everything. Bills, kids. I thought I could just focus on getting better." She looked away, toward the window, and in that silence Harley felt something else stir. A tension, an absence more glaring than the 4 lines or the pale skin. Her husband should have been here. The room darkened as evening slid across Los Angeles, painting the blinds in strips of gold. Machines ticked their steady rhythm, each beep like a fragile reassurance that Matilda was still here. She had dozed off, her chest rising with shallow effort, her hand still curled loosely in Harley's. He eased the phone from her bedside table. It was the same model he'd given her 2 Christmases ago. Practical, durable. The screen lit up at his touch, the background photo of Emma and Jack smiling with ice cream cones. His throat tightened. They should have been here, tucked into hospital chairs, laughing too loud for the nurse's liking. Scrolling absently, he checked for messages, hoping for reassurance. Instead, he found the silence. Weeks of unanswered calls. No text from Gary except a curt note about business meetings. Then, at the top of the screen, a red ring around Gary's profile photo. New story. Harley tapped before he could think. The first image nearly stopped his heart. A yacht gleaming under a sky so blue it seemed cruel. Champagne flutes clinked in the sun. Gary's grin stretched across the frame, sunglasses flashing, arms slung around men in linen shirts. Behind them, the Pacific swelled, infinite and indulgent. The caption, "Living my best life with the boys." Harley swiped. More images. Gary sprawled on white cushions, diving into glittering water, raising another glass against the burnished sunset. A short video played, Gary toasting the camera, voice booming. "Sometimes you just gotta escape reality, right?" Reality. A hospital room where his wife fought for every breath. Harley's vision blurred, rage bleeding through his chest until he thought it might burst his ribs. His fingers shook as he took screenshots, one after another, documenting every obscene detail. He could almost hear Martha's voice, the no-nonsense steel in her tone. "Don't lose your head, Harley. Do something with it." The engineer in him woke. Cold, methodical. He opened his banking app. His backup account, the one he'd given Gary access to for emergencies. The transaction history glowed on the screen like a confession. Yacht charters, designer boutiques, luxury dinners. Tens of thousands drained away while Matilda's body withered. He pressed a fist to his mouth, stifling the sound that clawed its way up his throat. Betrayal had a texture. It tasted of metal, it burned like acid. He had buried a wife. He would not bury a daughter while her husband toasted sunsets. Behind him, Matilda stirred, whispering in her sleep. "Daddy!" Harley sank back into the chair, clutching the phone. His mind spun with two truths colliding. His daughter was dying, and the man sworn to protect her was stealing not just money, but time, dignity, care. The jewelry box in his pocket pressed against him, a reminder of promises. Martha's ring, Emma's future. He had carved it with steady hands. Now those same hands itched to dismantle Gary's life piece by piece. The monitor beeped, steady as a heartbeat. Harley leaned close to his sleeping daughter. "I won't let him hurt you again," he whispered. It wasn't just a vow. It was the beginning of a war. The next morning began with the low hum of machines and the shuffle of nurses changing shifts. Matilda's cheeks looked sharper in the pale light, as though the night had carved more weight away from her. Harley spooned ice chips into her mouth, careful, like he used to help her with medicine as a child. "Daddy," she murmured, her voice dry as parchment. "You don't have to stay. I know you hate hospitals." "I hate not being where I'm needed," he said. His tone was firm enough to leave no room for argument. Her eyes softened, but behind them, something flickered, hesitation, fear. "Gary said he'd bring the kids later this week. He's just busy with work. He promised he'd cover the bills." Harley's stomach nodded. He forced his face still, swallowing the urge to spit the truth in that instant. "Sweetheart, let me worry about the bills. Your only job is to fight." When she drifted back to sleep, Harley stepped into the corridor. The hospital walls seemed narrower than the day before, pressing him forward, urging him toward a decision. He found an alcove by a vending machine, pulled out his phone, and opened the bank app again. The numbers glared like open wounds. He dialed customer service, his voice clipped and precise. "This is Harley Sims. I need to revoke an authorized user immediately." The representative's polite cadence slowed when he explained. "Yes, all cards, all access. Effective now. Lock the account." "Sir, can you confirm the user's name?" Harley didn't hesitate. "Gary McCoy, my son-in-law." He imagined the yacht at that very moment. Gary lifting a glass, oblivious, then reaching for a card that would decline over and over. The thought didn't bring relief, only a colder kind of focus. By mid-afternoon, his phone buzzed with a new message. Gary's name flashed across the screen. "What the hell is going on with the accounts? Cards aren't working. Call me." Another came moments later, sharper. "You can't just cut me off. I need access. This is temporary. You don't understand." Harley's thumb hovered over reply. His pulse thundered. He pictured Martha. The calm in her eyes when she stood up to unfair bosses, to creditors, to neighbors who judged them. She would want him to answer, not with fury but with precision. He typed slowly. "I understand more than you think. My daughter is in intensive care. You're on a yacht. From this moment forward, you pay for nothing of mine. If you want to explain yourself, do it in person in her hospital room." He hit send. The phone vibrated almost instantly with an incoming call. Harley let it ring until it died. Back in room 712, Matilda stirred, whispering for water. Harley brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Rest," he told her softly, but inside his resolve burned brighter. The cord between Gary and their family had been cut. And once you sever a cord, there's no tying it back the same way. Gary arrived 2 days later. Harley saw him before Matilda did, swaggering down the sterile corridor in designer sunglasses, the kind that tried too hard to make a man look untouchable. His shirt was half unbuttoned, revealing a tan that had no business on the skin of a man whose wife was dying. He smelled faintly of cologne and salt air, a cruel perfume in the antiseptic hallway. "Finally," Gary said, tugging off the glasses, his tone defensive before Harley even spoke. "You cut me off without warning. Do you have any idea what kind of position you put me in? Harley didn't raise his voice. I know exactly what position you were in. Deck chair. Midday sun. Champagne. The sunglasses twitched in Gary's hand. Look, you don't understand. I needed a break. I've been stressed. Stressed. Harley stepped closer, low enough that the nurses passing by slowed but didn't intervene. You were floating off Catalina while your wife's heart rate dipped below safe levels. Don't you dare use that word in this hallway. Gary's jaw worked, but no words came. Come in, Harley said at last, pushing open Matilda's door. Inside, the world hushed. Machines blinked in steady rhythm. The air smelled of antiseptic and lavender lotion. Matilda stirred, eyes heavy, then blinked at the figure by the door. For a second her face lit, recognition, hope, before it collapsed into something brittle. Gary, she whispered. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. He tried for charm, stepping toward her bed. Babe, I'm here now. I've just been... Don't. The single word cut sharper than any of Harley's. Matilda's hand trembled as she pulled it closer to her chest. I know where you've been. Everyone knows. Her eyes flicked to Harley, then back to Gary. While I've been fighting for breath, you've been posting sunsets. Gary faltered, searching for a line to save him. None came. The silence was louder than the machines. Harley moved to the foot of the bed, his voice even but edged with steel. Here's what's going to happen. You're done. With my accounts. With my daughter's trust. With this family. The only place left for you is outside that door, and if you walk back through it again without an ounce of decency, I'll make sure every person you drink champagne with knows exactly who paid for the glass. Gary looked from Harley to Matilda, realizing there was no ground left. His tan, his swagger, his empty hands. All of it seemed smaller under the pale hospital light. Matilda turned her face toward the window, dismissing him without another word. That was the final sentence. Gary backed out, sunglasses clutched like a shield, leaving only the beep of monitors behind. Harley sat again by Matilda's side. She exhaled, long and ragged, a release of something she had carried far too long. Daddy, she whispered, tears wetting the corners of her eyes. Thank you. For the first time in years, Harley's own tears came freely, not of guilt this time, but of something closer to salvation. A year later, the air smelled of cut grass and warm bread cooling on a kitchen counter. Harley leaned against the porch railing of his Texas home, watching Emma and Jack race barefoot across the yard. The swing he had rebuilt from old oak creaked as they took turns, their laughter lifting higher than the cicadas' drone. Matilda sat nearby in a wicker chair, a blanket draped across her knees. The color had returned to her face. Her hair, though shorter, caught the sunlight in copper strands the way Martha's once had. She still moved carefully, still tired more quickly than she admitted. But there was a steadiness now, a quiet strength that seemed etched into her bones. Dad, she called softly. He turned to see her holding the wooden jewelry box he had carried across the country last year, the same one that had weighed heavy in his pocket on the porch of an empty house. Now it rested lightly in her lap. I thought we could give it to Emma on her birthday, Matilda said. She brushed her fingers over the carved lid, smiling faintly. She's young, but I want her to understand that things are kept passed forward, that love doesn't end. Harley swallowed, his throat thick. Your mother would be proud. For a while they sat without words, watching the children arc higher into the dusk. Fireflies blinked in the hedges, 1,000 tiny lanterns sparking the edges of night. It struck Harley then how time had folded, how he had once run behind Matilda's bicycle, his hand on the seat, her voice shrieking in delight, how Martha had stood in the kitchen window, apron dusted with flour, waving at them both. Now it was Matilda's children carrying the sound forward, and Harley the one steadying from behind. He thought of Gary only once in passing, a name that had already begun to fade like an old bruise. Last he heard, Gary had left town, debts catching up where luxury once cushioned him. Harley felt no triumph in it, only distance, as though the man had belonged to another life entirely. What mattered was here. The creak of rope against wood, the smell of bread, the laughter that no longer sounded fragile. Matilda's hand found his on the armrest, cool and sure. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "That night, I thought I wouldn't see them grow up. Wouldn't see you again." "You will," Harley said, gripping her hand as though anchoring her to the earth. "You'll see every birthday, every scraped knee, every crooked drawing on the fridge." Matilda closed her eyes, leaning into the promise. The fireflies swelled brighter, and the swing arced higher, silhouetted against a violet sky. Harley breathed it in, the fragile, stubborn miracle of survival, of return, of not losing everything. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe. Love, carried forward, was stronger than absence, stronger than fear, stronger than even death. 14.